Community mediation. That's what we're going to be talking about this morning. Very, very important. So before we begin, Joanna Joseph, who is actually a manager there at the Community Mediation Division, who is or the Community Mediation Services Division? Who are they?
Okay, so as you would have rightly mentioned, we are a part of the Ministry of Sport and Community Development. And basically what we do, we were started in 2006 with the intention to facilitate a medium of culture, thereby to encourage healing and harmony in our community. What we do, we have two main approaches to getting this done: a proactive and a reactive approach. And by that I mean the proactive aspect of it. We would administer different courses and programs. So we go out to the communities and we teach persons different skills in effective communication and management and so on, so that if a conflict arises, they would be better able to deal with it in a peaceful manner. That's the proactive approach. The reactive would be the services that we provide on a daily basis, where if there's an existing conflict, persons could come into us and use our assistance to get that resolved peacefully.
Okay. So now that we know what the division is about, Renee, maybe you can tell us exactly what mediation is.
Okay, so good morning again. Mediation is the opportunity for persons who are in conflict to come together with the assistance of a mediator who is a neutral person, and the mediator's role is to help the parties to come up with a voluntary agreement. So the parties are not forced into agreement. The mediator's role is to help them come up with a voluntary agreement where they sit, discuss the matter, find out what are the underlying issues to the conflict. And when some persons ask, what is the role of the mediator really? The mediator just there to mind my business. No, Ria, that is not the role of the mediator. Sometimes people get uncomfortable when they hear that there's this third person who is there
in their business.
But the role of the mediator is to help the parties to come up with the underlying issues. Because sometimes when you're in conflict, you don't even know what it is the conflict is about. So it helps them to come up with the underlying issues, discuss the matter, and the mediator is really there to be impartial, a listening ear, and help guide the parties to an agreement that both of them are comfortable with. Okay. So it's not superficial. So when it is parties begin to throw out ways that they can solve the conflict, is that really realistic? That's the role of the mediator. Is that really realistic? You have to pay $100. Can you pay that $100 tomorrow? You're not employed, you have other bills. Can you pay that $100 tomorrow? So maybe you could set a timeline. That is the role of the mediator, and to help the parties come up with something that both of them are comfortable with.
So as you're talking about that and what mediation is exactly, and you spoke of the conflicts, what type of conflicts do you actually mediate?
Okay, so basically we would categorize it in civil or family disputes. So we say civil disputes would be any sort of disagreement among persons, two or more persons who are not related. So for example, that could be if you hire someone on a contract to maybe build your house or do some repairs. That agreement between you and that contractor would be falling under civil dispute in terms of if one of the parties is not fulfilling their part of the obligation. Right? So that's one example. We may have landlord and tenant disputes that falls under civil as well. Right? Disputes to the organization among colleagues. Right? So once you're not related, that's the best way to look at it. It will fall under the civil category. Then we have family disputes. So once you're related, you may be having some conflicts or disagreements amongst yourselves. Two of the very popular or common disputes in that regard would be disputes for property, who the property belongs to. It might be under co-parenting. So you were once in a romantic relationship that is over, and you have children, a child or children involved. But you're leading different lives. That disagreement that you may have along the way. So we facilitate that as well.
Okay. Any other types? So that's the two main types that you get.
But it's very broad in terms
Uh,
of minor disputes.
okay.
So the best way to look at it, we deal with everything other than domestic violence and crime. So those are the exceptions.
Okay.
So really, any type of dispute that you may be having that will not fall under the category of crime or domestic violence, we can handle that.
All right. And what other services do you offer?
So we also offer counseling. As Joanna would have mentioned, we do not deal with current domestic violence. So when persons who come into the mediation center, they may have been sent from the court or they may be self-referred. When they come into the mediation center, we would offer them counseling. So this would help them to deal with the issues separately or together. And we also offer counseling for co-parenting as well. Or a person can just walk into the center and say they would like counseling as well. So if you would allow me to just explain the process.
Go right ahead, because I think people need to know so that they will know how they can access the service.
Okay. So the two types of cases, sometimes we refer to it as either court referred, because the court is one of our major stakeholders, or self-referred. So persons can just see the sign and they say they want further information. They could be on the social media, Facebook, Instagram, and say they need further information. Right? So previously they could have walked in office, but I'll explain that in a few minutes. But when it says they come into the center, we do something called an intake. So that is a few minutes we take to ask them, what is your main issue as you see it? Because the other side, of course, will have their perspective. So what is the main issue as you see it? Why did you come into the center? So it's an interview that we do for a few minutes. We also do something called a risk assessment. And this is simply where we find out from the parties what has happened in the past. Are you afraid to be in the room with this person? Because if that is the case, then it's not appropriate for mediation. And it also helps us to know if it is appropriate for counseling or for mediation. Right? After that, if it is appropriate for mediation, we have trained and qualified mediators who work with the division, and we would then assign the case. So after we have taken both sides, we have started the case, we will let the persons know that your mediation is scheduled for such and such date with your trained and qualified mediator. So the mediation, during that process, the parties are sitting together. The mediator is there helping them to understand the underlying issues and come up with an agreement. And one of the best things about mediation is that it's self-determination. You know, even though the court is one of our stakeholders, they sometimes send cases to us because the persons have two very different sides of the story. And I don't know if it is sometimes you have been in the middle of a conflict, or you have heard two friends who have been in conflict, and you're wondering, but these people were in the same room together?
Yes.
Right? So that is sometimes one of the reasons why the magistrates send us and help the parties to come up with their own agreement. And this is where it also lies one of the benefits of mediation. You know, that they can come up with their own agreement and move forward.
But of course, both parties have to agree and present themselves as well, because it wouldn't, or can it just work if one comes and maybe you can actually still speak with that one person?
Well, no, it wouldn't be mediation.
Yeah.
It is one party. It would, you can get counseling, you can get access to other services. So we also do have our parent support group as well, because we would have heard Joanna talking about co-parenting. So we realized that a lot of our cases were family cases and persons who were dealing with parenting issues. So years ago, we would have started something called the Parent Support Group. And every year, twice a year, we have workshops where we bring all of the groups together and talk about a topic that is important to them. So this year, we would have had the first workshop in March. We were unable to continue with the second workshop as scheduled. So we actually went virtual and had it on Facebook,
Oh.
right? There, yes. So it is still on Facebook. Persons can go on our Facebook page, Ministry of Sport and Community Development, the 28th of September to the 4th of October. And they can go and review the sessions that we had on the Facebook page, as well as they could call the ministry, and I'll give you the numbers a little later on. You could call the division to find out where is the nearest location to you if you are interested in joining one of the parent support groups, which meet monthly.
Okay, now you're talking about those, but are you engaged right now in any projects? Like currently engaged in any projects at the moment?
Yes. So one of the projects we are currently coming up is going to be on the 4th of November. Well, the culmination, I should say, is on the 4th of November. The Community Inclusive Mediation Symposium. So again in March, we would have started working with 3 communities, Paranach, South Oropuch, and San Grande, where we trained persons, community workers, persons who are really involved in their community, where we trained them in mediation. And they had a period of mentorship. The mentorship was intentionally, well, initially was supposed to be face-to-face, of course. We had to move it virtually. But they had a period of mentorship. So they are now comfortable with mediation. So they learn the basic mediation skills, and now they have their comfort level of doing mediation, where trained and certified mediators would have held their hands, walked with them, doing a mediation, so they would have built that comfort level or confidence, I should say, doing mediation.
But how have you, because with the whole pandemic, and I know you would have had to, basically change the way in which you do things, but how have you continued to serve the public at this time and in light of the pandemic as well?
Okay, Ria, I'm glad you asked. We have continued using a number of means, which would be telephone, video conferencing, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and Google Meet. So we mainly do our services virtually. That would cover our intake interviews. That's the first interview you would do when you come into us. Our counseling as well. Particularly for the mediation, we would have focused on the Zoom aspect of it so far. But we are not limited to that because we want to be able to let anyone who needs our services be able to access it. So we still actually have the option of face-to-face for those persons who are experiencing digital poverty. So they are able to access us virtually. We are accommodating them via appointment, face-to-face in our physical locations. However, of course, all public health protocols are being observed. So persons have to be willing to adhere to these protocols. So wearing a mask, for example, we have the social distancing and physical distancing, hand sanitizing, all of the protocols that was advised in terms of utilizing that option.
Oh, well, that's great. And I'm glad to hear that, there's so many, various options, so many different options that you have, in fact, been utilizing, because this pandemic has really created a real difference in thought, difference in communication, every sort of difference that you could possibly think of. But and mediation is about communication.
Exactly. So it would have caused different organizations, including us, to be innovative and, to really find a quick solution so that persons could access the services at this time.
Okay. How can people... sorry, go ahead.
No, and even in using these different methods of communication, we still have to maintain the same standard we previously had. And mediation has a lot of benefits. For one, it is free. Everything we do, because we are attached to the Ministry of Sport and Community Development, everything that we do is free.
Okay. Now, you say it's free, and that's something I've always been advertising for you guys, by the way, because I think it's important that people know that it is a free aspect of the government. You can go in and, well, not go
Mm-hmm.
in as you say now because of things that have happened, but
Right.
it is free if people need to access
Mm-hmm.
these services. But how can they actually contact you if they feel, you know what, I ain't getting through this now, and it hot in my head. How do I resolve this? How can they get in touch with you?
Okay, so one of the things that you can do is to call. So we have locations in different parts of the country. So for if you are in Port of Spain or the West, you can contact us at 625-2819 or 625-6768. If it is you are in the kind of central north area, around where San Juan area, we have a center in MTS Plaza. You can contact us at 638-8133. We also have a location in Tunapuna, the Tunapuna Social Services Building. That number is 497-6068. Then coming down to Cunupia, we have a location in Cunupia, which is 693-2955. In Cuba as well, in the Cuba Social Services Building, 679-3660. And finally, in South, in Point Fortin, right there upstairs licensing office, we have a center as well, 648-2888 or 648-2810. And of course, for the persons who are on social media, they can check out our Facebook page, Ministry of Sport and Community Development. Like our page, share our page. We always have up-to-date information about the activities that we are doing. Or they can check the ministry's website, Ministry of Sport and Community Development, or mscd.gov.tt.
I'm ready. As you would have mentioned on our Facebook page, I just want to take the opportunity to state we also weekly would post inspirational messages as well as tips relevant to what's happening around you. So with the pandemic, how could you cope with different aspects of your life and things like that. So it's a good page to follow to stay motivated, stay on top of things. You could visit that Facebook page.
All right. But you prefer that people call first rather than walk in?
Well, right now,
Yeah. Especially with what's happening with the pandemic and everything.
Not only that, we have to make sure that we can ensure the social distancing. So we have to know the number of persons that will be there at any given point in time.
Yeah, well, I understand that. Do you mind if we open the phone lines to see if anyone has any questions pertaining to this, the mediation services? We can open the phone line?
Yes,
okay.
You can open the phone line.
So I'll just if anyone has questions about the Community Mediation Services Division, now is the time that you can call at 622-4911, 622-4911. Give us a call if you've got any questions, or you can WhatsApp us at 472-1572. That's 472-1572. Now, this is, of course, the Community Mediation Services Division, and they are here to help. They are here to serve. They are here to mediate. Even
one of the other things here, while we wait on our call, I want to remind persons as well that mediation is a confidential process.
Yes.
So, in this particular project we have, and that we are going to be talking about for the next 6 weeks, we want to ensure persons understand that it's a confidential process. So your business will not be out in the street. The mediator does not go and speak your business. We make sure that it's confidential to the point where after the mediation, anything that is discussed in the mediation except for the agreement is shredded.
You're right.
It's disposed of. Because we don't want persons to say, well, I see this one in mediation center, or this is what was discussed in mediation. No, the only thing that leaves the mediation is the agreement. And also persons, they don't even have to go to court, as I would have mentioned. They can come straight to the mediation center or call the numbers, and we would start our process over the phone or using a virtual medium. So they don't have to go to court. But if it is you choose to go to court, or you choose to access a lawyer, and the lawyer does refer you to mediation, or the magistrate does refer you to mediation, know that at the end of the process, it is still confidential. You get the same quality service either way.
Rani, if I may, because this will be touching on some of the benefits of mediation, I want to touch on the restorative aspect of it, especially with the family-type mediation. If you come into us and we go through that process of deciphering what were the underlying issues, the counseling aspect of it, and then the both parties are able to actually hear each other out and come up with an agreement, it usually helps to heal the family. So, instead of just having a judgment and everybody just walk their way, it would have been a process that you would have gone through to understand each person's point of view and to come up with something that is be considered fair in both areas. So you have the opportunity to restore in the family.
Yeah.
I think that's very important to know.
How long let me just go out the number before I ask that question. 622-4911, 622-4911. We've still got about 9 minutes. 622-4911, about 8 actually, 622-4911. Give us a call if you've got any question for Community Mediation Services Division. And now that I've done that, I've forgotten my question. Oh, goodness, what was I going to ask? I do know, though, that having had discussions with you in the past, because you say it's totally confidential, and you have also said or indicated that if people, because, people might still say, Trinidad is a small place, so practically everybody know everybody, or know somebody who knows somebody who know you, or something like that, that if people are uncomfortable coming into one of the divisions in your area, one of the offices in their area, that they can actually go to one outside of the area if they prefer, right?
Yes, they can. So they don't have to visit the location in their community. They can go to somewhere else. But again, as I said, totally confidential.
Yeah, it is. But, some people still have this stigma or feeling that is like, oh, gosh, while it is, and I believe that it is totally confidential, nobody's going to know. You never know. Somebody might say, hey, she going inside there, or he going inside there. I wonder what you're going for. Something wrong with him or something wrong with them.
And I think this month is celebrating mental health month and really focusing on removing stigma of people accessing mental health services is very important.
It is.
So, especially during this time when we had the pandemic, we had made sure that our services were still available via phone. And the amount of persons who called accessing our services, we want to make sure that persons can say, I need help, and I can't get it from sitting alone. I can't use the previous coping mechanisms that I had. I need new coping mechanisms, and they could reach out to a professional, whether it be a professional to help in counseling or to help in conflict resolution.
May I ask if with the pandemic, because we've heard of increases in so many different things, have you encountered from March till now increases in the number of people, as you did mention it, accessing your services because they're having more conflicts in the home, whether it be domestic, for counseling purposes, or landlord-tenant issues, things like that? Have you found that there have been more and people needing help in those aspects?
So again, mediation is still unknown in Trinidad.
That's such a shame.
Yes, but people have been accessing it during this period for counseling, but we are trying to get the word out there for mediation, that they can access it through access conflict resolution through mediation, because normally persons go straight to the court, right? So we are still trying to get the word out there. You can access mediation without going to the court. we are still also transitioning to the virtual mediation. So right now we are only in one location, but we are trying to transition and move outward and make sure that the clients have the services that they need. Also, there are persons who, they don't have access to consistent internet. They don't have access to, and we would hear it in the education sector as well, they don't have access to a device. So we want to make sure that the persons can use the services, still social distance, and so we are putting things in place slowly but surely.
Okay. So making it a little bit easier for people to access your services.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But of course, first they have to be aware of your services.
Yeah, so we are working tirelessly to promote those services. One of the reasons why we are on today, and we constantly, as I said, weekly would post different messages. Even the virtual aspect of it, it would have opened up a gateway to now reach further places that beyond our physical locations. We could access that, and persons could come on once they have the means, as many were saying, virtually to access it. And of course, we are still maintaining the face-to-face at this time.
Yeah. And, something that I want to stress again that people need to understand, you talked about going to the courts. Most of the time when you go to the courts, you have to hire a lawyer and you have to pay that lawyer. This is a free service. Totally free service.
Yes. And you can, if it is you wish, if both parties wish, but we want to encourage that persons, you get to speak for yourself. You get to say in your own words, without any legal jargon, what is really the issue for you. And so the other party also hears that. They hear, because sometimes, again, there's this middle person, the he face, she face, So we want to ensure that they hear for themselves what is the real issue, and without that middle person, and get to the bottom of the issue and come up with an agreement that both of them are comfortable with.
As you're talking there, I'm also hearing, in a sense, arguments between two people who have come from mediation, them arguing and possibly with raised voices. And I want to ask, is that okay?
Yes, of course. It is, because sometimes you need to just get it out there. Of course, the mediator is not going to allow any violence or people to make threats to each other, right? But, getting, being able to say what it is you have to say in the way that you need to say to get it out there. And then we can come back to being civil and say, okay, so we have had that moment to vent. We have gotten all the information on the table. How do we move forward? Because the shouting match is not going, it was working outside. It was not working outside, so it's not going to work in here to come up with a solution.
Yeah. Right.
Great. So we really want to also remind persons that listen in the next upcoming 6 weeks, or the 31st week, the next upcoming 5 weeks, as we let them know how we have gone into the community in our community inclusive mediation project, the communities of Carina, Sandy Grande, and South Oraput, so to bring mediation services closer to them.
Okay, great. We have to end it here now. Just going to have quick in a few seconds. Any final words apart from that? Just listen on in the next few weeks?
Yeah, definitely. For everyone to stay tuned and spread the word. Call in. If you didn't get a chance to call in on the radio, you could call the numbers mentioned, go up on our website and ask the necessary questions.
All right. Thank you so very much.
Thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure. It was a pleasure. Looking forward to next week.
Definitely.
All right. Take care then.
Take care.
Bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Next week, please.
So the community mediation services, and you can catch that program again next week right here on Talk City 91.1 FM.